All right. So now we'll look at graphing using unique quadratic properties. Yeah. In the previous video, we looked at graphing using table of values, and we said a number of things. Personally, I feel like it's messy. I feel like you need to know, a lot of chance or not chance involved, because if you don't have if you don't guess the right, values for x to work with, or if you're not given, you will probably just pick out the very awkward part of the graph, right? Another disadvantage is that you don't also get exact points. Most times, you'll probably just have to, freehand it, and you might not pick out the vertex. You might not pick out pick it out exactly. So, say your vertex is 0.47, you might just end up picking 0.5, right? But this one, we are going to graph using their properties. So for this one, you're going to solve to get the actual values and then plot your graph, right? So, and this one also gives you, I would say this one also gives you proper insight into quadratic functions, right? It gives you proper insight into quadratic functions. So let's look at this. The properties are, the first one is the direction of opening. The second is the x-intercept, then the y-intercept, the axis of symmetry, and your vertex. Okay, so let's work. Your direction of opening. Now, your direction of opening depends on your value for A, right? So it can be up or down. If A is positive, then your graph would look like this, right? So it's going to be up. You can use the U to even write up. But if A is negative, it's going to be down, right? So it's either up or down, right? For this one, A is negative, so we know that the graph we are expecting should look like this, right? It's going to be down because A is negative, so concave down. Okay, good. So for this graph, we know, let me just write it here, direction of opening, down. Good. Your x-intercepts, mean the value of x when y is 0, right? So we can solve for this. When y is 0. So if we make f of x 0, we can solve for x, right? We can solve for that. So let's do that quickly. We'd have a 0 is equal to x squared, negative x squared, minus x plus 6 is in standard form, so we can pick out our a, b, and c. A is negative 1, b is negative 1, and c is 6. Quadratic formula, x is equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, right? So if I do this, let me plug in quickly. I would have minus 1 plus or minus square root of minus 1 squared minus 4 times minus 1 times 6 over 2 times minus 1. So this would give me 1 plus or minus the square root of 25, because 1 plus 24 is 25 over negative 2. So this would give me 1 plus 5 over negative 2, or 1 minus 5 over negative 2. I would have, this is negative 3, I believe, or positive 2, right? So I believe we all know how to do this. Okay, so our x-intercepts are, again, you can see y is 0 at this point. So it's going to be negative 3 or positive 2, right? So we are getting somewhere. Negative 3 or positive 2. So we have this point, and we also know that our graph is upside down. We've gotten two things. All right. Next, we need to pick out our y-intercept. Again, our y-intercept would be our value for y when x is 0. So we can just make x 0 and solve. Let's make x 0 and solve. So if I make x equals 0, I would have f of x. Sorry, let me put the solutions. So this is minus 3 or 2, right? Okay, so if I make y equals 0, I would have, okay, my y would be equal to negative 0 squared minus 0 plus 6. So basically, I end up with plus 6. I end up with plus 6, which should be, so my y-intercept is plus 6. again 0, 6, right? X is 0, y is 6. This one is minus 3, 0. X is minus 3, y is 0, and 2, 0. And it should make sense why we're doing this. Okay, moving on, let's pick out our axis of symmetry, right? Our axis of symmetry. Now, if you notice, for any quadratic graph, if this were my x-intercept, see I'm working here now, right? If these are my x-intercepts, my vertex would be right in the middle. The x-coordinate of my vertex will be right in the middle. My axis of symmetry will be in the middle of my x-intercepts, which means that I can just find the average of this and I'll have my axis of symmetry. Yeah? Think about it. So let me draw another graph. Then let me call this. Good. My axis of symmetry again would be right in the middle. Right in the middle. Right? So for axis of symmetry, I can just say, what's the average of my x-intercept? So I'm going to have minus 3. So you add them up and you divide it by 2, which would give you, this should be negative 0.5 if I'm correct. Right? Negative 0.5. So that means that the line that would cut the graph right into 2 would be this. Okay. Finally, my vertex. Let me trim that line. Sorry. X is equal to 0.5, right? So that's good. Finally, my vertex. Okay, so for the vertex, right, we already know what our x value would be, right? Our x value would be on that line of symmetry. To find the corresponding y value, we can just go and plug back into our function, right? We can plug back into our function to figure out what the y value would be, and then we can now take that as a pair of coordinates, right, for the vertex. So let's see that if I plug 0.5 there, negative 0.5 there, okay, I'll have to pull out a calculator for this. I would have f of x, actually f of 0.5, let me write that. F of negative 0.5 would be equal to negative 0.5 squared minus negative, hold on, there should be a minus sign here also, right? So minus 0.5, okay, you know what, so that I don't confuse anybody, I'm just going to do it all over again. Okay, so we need to just put negative 0. There are just too many negatives. So we have f of x would be negative, then, of course, 0.5 squared minus negative, I'm doing it again, 0.5, okay, plus 6, right? 0.5 squared gives you 0.25, right, positive. So if I multiply by the minus sign outside, I would have minus 0.25 plus 0.5 plus 6. So this would give me 6.25 as my y value, right? 6.25. So it means that the coordinates of the point are negative 0.5 and 6.25, right? It's okay if this looks a bit much. I'm going to run over it very quickly again, right? It's okay if this looks a bit much. But would also have another example, so that should help. Okay, so my vertex now, I'll use another color for my vertex. My vertex would have to be right here, negative 0.5 and 6.25. So I'm just going to put it somewhere here, right? Just a bit above that. Okay. Sorry, I know my graph is not looking the best right now, but I mean, you get the general picture, yeah? Again, notice that we didn't need them to give us, points that they felt like would work. We didn't need like anybody to give us anything. We're able to fight through this right from scratch. Okay, so, and then there you have it. Wow, my graph is really ugly. But you can see it follows the exact same pattern, right? The exact same pattern. Okay, so I'm going to clear all of this and just quickly explain. We already have the solution, so I'm just going to explain. Direction of opening was down. How do we know it was down? Because A was negative. It means our graph looks like this, right? We said if A is positive, our graph is going to be facing up. We solved for the x-intercept by making y equals 0, right? And it made sense. And we got the 2 points when -3, x is -3, y was 0, and then when x was 2, y was 0. For the y-intercept, we made x 0, and I think this is the simplest one, right? It was 6, so it's basically x is 0, y is 6. For the axis of symmetry, we had to find the average because we know that it's going to be right in the middle of these 2 points here, right? We know it's going to be right in the middle of these 2 points here. So we found the average of those two, and we got x equal -0.5. And then finally for the vertex, we plugged in -0.5 to get the coordinates on the on the graph, right? That matches with that. So it's -0.5, comma. We got 6.25, right? And which is the point we have here for the vertex. So it's that simple, right? It's that simple. Yeah, you want to watch this. My recommendation to you is try to write out these properties on a piece of paper and how to get them by yourself. Get used to what to do. All right, get used to what to do. So don't just leave it and say, oh, I get this. No, write it out. Try to write it out without the video and see that you can remember what you're supposed to do at every point in time. All right, thank you very much. I leave for you guys, right? So, peace.